March Madness isn't over just yet. I've got a couple more deck profiles to show you, and I'm going to be showing you guys today's video my boy Lavien Lord Granfia. What is up, card fighters, and welcome back to the Prime Vanguard channel. Hope you guys have been doing well this March. I know I have, and a little free time that I had, I want to bring you guys one of my favorite Stoicheia decks, which is Granfia, and the upgrades I made to it for the current format of March 2024. This has been one of the decks I've been working on behind the scenes, and I'm super excited to bring in today's deck profile to you guys my current build for it for March. But before I can do that, if you guys enjoy seeing content like this, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and do not forget to hit the notification bell so you guys are always up to date when my newest videos coming out. With that being said, let's turn over to camera 2 and get this deck profile started. Alright, card fighters, to get this deck profile started off with, I am playing the Granfia ride line for Granfia. Now, in most recent times, I have experimented with other ride lines outside of this one for the deck. However, because all of your effects that generate you plant tokens during the battle phase are reliant on you having Cardfight Vanguard at any grade, the reward for switching over to the Roa ride line or the Lavien Lord ride line just didn't feel that good, and therefore going back to the Granfia ride line was the best way to go. Now, moving on to my grade 3s, I am playing 3 copies of Lavien Lord Granfia. Now, Lavien Lord Granfia is not as powerful as Lavien Lord, but it definitely still has some things going for it. The 4 attacks is always fantastic. The Noblesse Rose token being a very scary Vanguard attack is still incredible, and this deck's use of plant tokens for resources as well as offense is still fantastic. Converting them into draw, converting them into rush, converting them into additional power for another attacker is incredible. And with the introduction of 2 promo cards for Granfia, as well as the most recent support that we got in Evenfall Onslaught, this deck really is one of the better decks in terms of dominating the early game than a lot of decks currently we out right now. And for my final grade 3, I play 1 copy of Gradius Grottle. Persona writing is extremely important in Granfia. Granfia needs to be able to maximize the power of its front row to just make that 4th attack from the restand scarier, as well as get the card advantage from Persona writing. Moving on to grade 2s, the grade 2s of this deck have definitely become more linear. I am playing 4 copies of Ran or Rangerine. This card has been a staple since my first Granfia deck profile. Being able to turn itself into a 2 plant token for rear guard or gauge is fantastic. It's completely free, and it's a free resource that Granfia can always use to get itself out of a bad situation when your plant gauges are gone or your Noblesse is retired. Just being able to set up for free is incredibly fantastic. And for my next grade 2 and the MVP of the grade 2 line, I am playing 4 copies of Luster Impact Dragon. Now, Luster Impact Dragon is making his debut in the Granfia deck profile, and he has the following ability. He states, continuous rearguard circle. During your turn, if your back row has 2 or more grade 1 or less rear guards, this unit gets boost and power plus 5,000. Auto rearguard circle. Once per turn, when this unit stands by the ability of your Vanguard with Granfia or Lavien Lord in its card name, if your Vanguard's power is 33,000 or greater, cost Soul Blast 1, draw a card, and this unit gets power plus 5,000 until the end of turn. Now, Luster Impact has been incredible for 3 key reasons. The first ability to turn itself into a booster makes our early game offense that much better. With cards like Orangerine, Darien, and other plant token generators we have for the early game, we were able to call this card out as soon as possible and turn it into a 15k booster with our plant tokens, making for a 20k attack. That is really huge. It demands 15k shield from your opponent on either grade, whether it be 1 or 2 if you're going second, to really push against the offense of this deck. Its second ability is really important, as well as this card improves the card advantage issue of Granfia. It's no secret that this is one of those go all in decks and really wants you to like win on your first grade 3 turn or Persona right turn, realistically speaking. And having this card recuperate the card advantage for doing what this deck does is incredible. And for my final grade 2, this one might be a little bit more controversial or one that many people don't agree with, but I am playing 4 copies of Love Binding Maiden Margaret. Now, the reason why I put Margaret into this deck as a 4 is for 2 simple reasons. One, it's no secret, as I've stated earlier, that Granfia's card advantage is really bad in this deck. You commit a lot of cards from hand, but you don't see a huge return in card advantage to that. Like, Luster Impact is great and all because it lets you get continuous draw if you're meeting the power threshold for its ability. And you have Darien, which lets you get a Counterblast 1 and draw a card. But both of those cards don't really generate your hand up until you hit grade 3. And at that point, our hand is going to be really low and we're not going to have more than like maybe 4 to 6 cards in hand. Margaret gives us the opportunity to place her to the bottom of the deck, draw more cards, and then keep our hand size up while in the early game to protect ourselves or draw into pieces that we need when going into Granfia. I will admit that it is a little awkward sometimes when using this particular ride line with Margaret because you can't use the grade 2's effect unless the grade 1 is in soul. But when you see it on the grade 1 turn and you're going second, you can use this ability, convert one of your mushrooms into the soul, and then get to use it again. So for 2 turns, you can take advantage of Margaret, and then the remaining Margarets that you have, you can use them for the Persona Ride effect, which actually does come up, especially against decks like Ava or other decks that you need to survive for the additional turn for if you don't believe you can win. I will admit, this can definitely be whatever you want. You can play the Tide Line, you can play the Clapping Dragons, the Inlet Pulses, whatever it fits, floats your boat. I have just found this to be great because I'm either going to use this card to attack in the early game so it's not dead in my hand, or I'm going to be able to have this card to convert into card advantage when I go second with the mushrooms and the riding up to get the additional value of this card and keep my hand size healthy. Now that's it for grade 2s. Moving on to grade 1s, I am playing 4 copies of the Boro Mushrooms. This card is self-explanatory. It is one of the best plant token generators that we have in Stoicheia. I think like in the entire nation in terms of plant token generators. It's in the main deck it's supposed to be, so now we actually take advantage of the 5k buff to one of our rear guards, which improves our front row numbers so that our first and fourth attack are not the only good ones. It also improves our early game, works with Margaret to get additional card draw. It just fixes everything that this deck had an issue with in terms of offense and power. And then for my next grade 1, I'm playing 4 copies of Rosarium Fairy. The MVP of the grade 1 line, this card is busted, especially in Granfia, because with Rosarium Fairy, we were able to convert one of our rear guards into plant tokens or gauges, so we can turn one of our gauges from 1 to 2 gauges, or if we're using this in the early game, get 3 bodies onto the board, or like I stated earlier, we can use it for generating other plant tokens for cost effects. But the best part about this card is the fact that because Noblesse Rose token gets so big, we can take the power buff from this card and using it on our first attack to be really huge, and then choose a different target to be the restanding or get additional power on that, like our Lesser Impact Dragon, for a much more aggressive offensive turn. Now, Rosarium Fairy is a grade 1 piece that becomes really good in the early game, late game. There's no period in time where you see this card in a Granfia deck that this card is ever bad. It just improves your offense tenfold. Like, that's how good this card is to make it work for Granfia's finishing turn. For my next grade 1, I'm playing 4 copies of Flower of Candor Darien. This is another promo support piece. This is the one that lets you generate plant tokens during the battle phase like Orangerine and helps you draw cards when you hit grade 3 as long as you have Noblesse. So thanks to these 2 cards, we're able to keep our card advantage up in this deck, as well as Margaret in the early game to keep our hand size healthy to start seeing other things. But Darien is one of the few pieces that we have to generate plant gauges consistently to power up our Noblesse for its effect. 4 Stoicheia Sentinels, one of them is supposed to be Elementaria. And then for my last card in the deck, with the 50 card deck rule, I wanted to find something that actually improves the card advantage of Granfia, as well as the early game where Granfia really needs to dominate at. And the best card that keeps coming to mind when playtesting is 2 copies of Mythiarch Habitat. Now, Mythiarch Habitat is the free order that we have in Stoicheia. Lets you check top 7 and then call something to rear guard circle as long as its grade is equal to or less than your Vanguard. Now, Mythiarch Habitat is great in this deck because all of our good effects or units that we want to use have on-place abilities or continuous abilities. Orangerine or Darien happen during the battle phase. We have our Rosarium Fairy or our mushrooms, which convert themselves into something. And then Lesser Impact is great if we need it on our first Granfia turn, which you always want to have. This card being able to help with your battle formation and just be a free body onto the board, especially for Granfia, is huge. While there are other cards you can play, I do think that this was just the best one I wanted, because if my hand is bad and I just don't have the pieces to make my offense work, I can hopefully get a Mythiarch Habitat and then convert it into something to improve the offense on the board. And to wrap it up with triggers, my trigger lineup I don't believe has changed since my last Granfia deck profile. I am playing 7 critical, 1 of the Stoicheia OT, 4 draw to shields in this deck, and then obviously 4 of my generic heal triggers. Now, in terms of triggers, I don't think Granfia really has room for flexibility. I don't think fronts are good in this deck because your numbers are already so high that fronts just wouldn't do it for me. And then by the time that it happens, you would have already swung in with your other units. And then you need crits, obviously, to make your big attacks scary. And then draws, because you have to draw into your pieces to keep this deck going. If you start losing pieces too heavily, or if your hand size just is not going up because you're not getting your luster impact off, you lost CB for Darien, then you are not in the best situation. So draw triggers are really important for this deck. And then because we play the Stoichia OT, we're practically playing like 8 crits in this deck already. Heals, do whatever you want depending on the meta. I just keep it safe with the generics. However, that is it, you guys, for my Granfia deck profile. Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you guys enjoyed seeing content like this, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Do not forget to hit that notification bell so you're always up to date on my newest videos coming out. With that being said, I am your host, Prime Vanguard, and I'll catch you later. Peace.